Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reports that its claim that Scotland has 25% of Europe's offshore wind potential lacks evidence and that it knew there was no basis for it.
Minister Lorna Slater.
The figure relating to Scotland having 25% of Europe's offshore wind potential was first set out back in a 2010 publication. It is now out of date. However, this does not change the fact that Scotland already has an important offshore wind sector, and we have huge potential to grow this and become a global leader, with over 40 gigawatts of potential offshore wind developments already in the pipeline.
Kerr.
Thank the Minister for that answer, but I'm afraid the Minister has completely missed the point. Presiding Officer, everyone wants the renewables industry to succeed, but this will not be achieved by ministers putting out dodgy data. Only a couple of weeks ago, I made a point of order as the First Minister had misrepresented Scotland's energy consumption from renewables. Instead of doing the honourable thing and publicly admitting our mistake, she quietly amended the official record. So it seems the misrepresentation and misuse of data might be endemic within this government. The civil service apparently knew the data was not true several years ago. So, Minister, when did ministers first become aware that what they were using, or that they were using a figure that, to quote Scottish Government officials, hadn't been properly sourced?
Minister.
Ministers became aware of the issue on Tuesday, the 8th of November, ahead of the publication of the report by these islands. What doesn't change about the statistic is the amount of renewable energy potential that Scotland has, which is still significant and is part of our future energy provision in Scotland now and as an independent country. With over 40 gigawatts, that's in the pipeline already, presuming planning decisions and finding a route to market, which is the equivalent of producing enough electricity to power every home in Scotland for 17 years.
Kerr.
For that answer, but once again, she has completely missed the point. The claim was that Scotland has 25% of the potential. And the bogus statistic, which civil servants and ministers knew was wrong, has been repeated ad nauseam. This chamber has heard it, either here or in the course of their duties, from First Minister Sturgeon, Deputy First Minister Swinney, Minister Todd, Minister Macpherson, Minister Robertson, Minister Matheson and Minister Slater. Minister, the Ministerial Code at section 1.3c says, "It is of paramount importance that ministers give accurate and truthful information to the Parliament, correcting any inadvertent error at the earliest opportunity. Ministers who knowingly mislead the Parliament will be expected to offer their resignation to the First Minister." So now that I am raising this with the member, as the presiding officer just asked us to do, what action is the Minister taking to ensure that the Ministerial Code is always complied with?
Minister.
Scottish ministers understood that the statistic was accurate at the time that they cited it. Now that it has come to our attention that it is not, we are working to update statistics on how our offshore wind potential compares to other countries. We will update Parliament once this is done, and at that point we will consider how any legacy documents may need to be updated. But the key point is that Scotland's enormous potential for offshore wind has not changed. In fact, we have made big progress in recent years with, as I've said, 40 gigawatts now in the pipeline.
Thank you. I call Colin Smith.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. We know that the claim Scotland had 25% of Europe's offshore wind was always untrue, just as the claim that they constantly repeat that nearly 100% of the electricity we consume comes from renewables isn't actually true either. But let's turn to another figure. The Scottish Government promised there would be 120,000 renewable jobs per year by 2020. Can the Minister tell us, was that target reached? Is that still the target? And just how many of those supply chain jobs from the offshoring of the ScotWind leases will actually be created in Scottish businesses, not foreign-owned businesses?
Minister.
Thank the member very much for the question. We are, of course, all keen to ensure that the development of the offshore wind industry benefits Scotland's businesses and our economy. Initial supply chain commitments around ScotWind indicate an average of £1.4 billion of investment in Scotland per project, which equates to £28 billion of investment across the 20 projects.
Fergus Ewing.
Presiding Officer, I hope that all of us here are here in order not to play politics about the past, but to propel progress in future. And to that end, can I reflect that when I was Energy Minister, one of the most frustrating experiences, Presiding Officer, was that it could take 12 years to get consents for, say, a wind farm onshore, which it took 12 months to construct. Therefore, can I make the suggestion to the Minister that the Scottish Government review the processes for obtaining permissions, licences and consents for on- and offshore developments and subsea cables, and particularly grid connections, with a view to simplifying, shortening and streamlining them, and that the Scottish Government should, in order to achieve success throughout these islands, engage with the UK Government in order to try to identify one lead body that can guide this process. Otherwise, I fear that many of the projects that we all wish to see may be thwarted and jeopardised through delay.
I thank the member for his question. However, it does not bear relation to the substantive question on the paper. Therefore, I will ask that the Minister does not respond. I go to Liam MacArthur.
Thank you. Now the Scottish Government has admitted to cooking the books, something that did the renewable sector no favours. Does the Minister believe that it is advisable for SNP MPs to double down on this statistic that has been admitted to be not true in the House of Commons earlier on this afternoon? Does she not believe that this will simply spread further fake news about the state of the sector?
Minister.
I welcome, of course, my Liberal Democrats colleagues' newfound interest in statistical rigour, which I'm sure he will bring to any future election materials as well. I repeat that Scottish ministers understood that the statistic was accurate at the time that they cited it. Now that it has come to our attention that it is not, we are working to update the statistics on how our offshore wind potential compares to other countries. What hasn't changed is that potential, merely how we report it in comparison to other countries, which we will update in due course.